Hey everyone, so I don't know if you saw my main channel, but I did a really quick review of Morbius, and the film came out on April Fool's Day, so I went ahead and made a somewhat April Fool's joke about the movie, made a review, and didn't really talk about the movie at all. It was just a big joke, which, I mean, come on, if you're going to be released on April Fool's Day and you're a movie like Morbius, the joke is just there. Tons of people were doing it, people all over Twitter. Honestly, even once I got to the joke, it was a little overdone, but I just wanted to make kind of a silly remixed video just to have fun. And yeah, if you want to go check it out, go ahead. It's just a big joke, but I actually do have some thoughts on Morbius now. No, it's not gonna be a joke. I'm not gonna extend it too long. April Fool's is over, but I do want to talk about Morbius, Jared Leto, the film that, it took many tries to get the film out, rescheduled constantly. I believe it was originally supposed to come out in January of 2020. If I remember correctly, it got pushed back before the pandemic, and then ultimately, once the pandemic hit, they got pushed back even more. But I know originally it was supposed to come out in 2020, even before Spider-Man No Way Home and before Doctor Strange in the Multiverse, Multiverse of Madness. So another crazy thing is the fact that the trailer already had things like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man on the poster in the alley that said murderer, which we thought was a reference to No Way Home, but it was using the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And also Michael Keaton was in the trailer and later confirmed to be Vulture from the MCU. So that led to a lot of people already speculating that the movie was going to be a multiverse movie, which led to more rumors that Spider-Man No Way Home was going to be a multiverse movie, and what do you know, that ended up being true. Which is odd because even though that movie came out before Morbius, a lot of what was shown in that trailer didn't even pan out in the film itself. It's not a multiverse movie. I wouldn't say that at all, save for the post-credit sequence, which even that was redone. It's not the same footage that was used for the original trailer. So what exactly happened? I don't know, but let's talk about the movie itself. Morbius was a movie that Sony was working on for quite some time. Jared Leto eventually got attached to the film. He'd already done a comic book movie with Suicide Squad, playing the Joker, so now he was going over to the Marvel Universe. I know a lot of people weren't excited to see that exactly. Not a lot of Jared Leto fans that I can find online, to be honest, but overall, I thought his performance in the film was fine. He seemed the most straightforward that he's been in any film so far. He wasn't really doing anything too wacky or, trying to create a really out there type of character or trying to hide under makeup. No, he was very much just kind of being himself in this movie. And for me, it worked the best. But the film itself is very odd, very oddly edited. You can easily tell stuff was cut out of the film as it moves along. The movie begins kind of interesting with that cave sequence we see in the trailer, which, that alone, that cave sequence looked pretty awesome, but unfortunately it's only in the beginning of the movie, and then we see his backstory, which we just see him as a kid. We see how he was born with this disability, same with one of his best friends that he meets in, I believe it's supposed to be an orphanage, or it's just a hospital, whatever it's supposed to be. Maybe it's both. And then he eventually becomes a doctor, all from the help of the man who watched over them, who was also a doctor, and he saw the gifts that Jared Leto would have, or Morbius would have. Michael Morbius. His name is not Jared Leto in the film. Michael Morbius has, he sees the skills and the beyond his years knowledge that he has, because he's able to fix the machine that's keeping his friend alive, which was falling apart, by replacing the fuse with a ballpoint pen spring. So that's why he has knowledge beyond his years, and why the doctor decides Morbius needs more special attention. That's really it. So Morbius, he gets some kind of award, and we see that in the trailer, and it goes by really quick, and for most of the movie, we're actually in the hospital, or at Matt Smith's house, or at Michael's house. So we don't really see anything else. The trailer made the movie look like it was going to be a lot bigger than it actually is. And then after that, we find out he's using bats, the bats that we saw at the beginning of the film that he got from the cave. So really, there was no reason to begin with that scene anyway, because we get backstory, but it's literally only about like 5 minutes of backstory, and then we're back to where we were earlier, which was he has the bats now. He's using them to figure out a way to heal bodies. He's testing it on a mouse. It works, but then tries it on himself. Of course, he turns into a vampire. Pretty obvious pretty generic, like horror movie kind of stuff going on here. Mad scientist type of film. And honestly, for being that kind of movie, if you're going to make that kind of movie, but set within a Marvel comic book universe, I don't think that's a bad idea. It hasn't really actually been done as much as you would think. There's been mad scientists, but we haven't really seen them go the route of doing, something more on the horror side, something like with just a straight up vampire. We got Blade, which was about a vampire that killed other vampires, but we didn't really get this side of it, of someone from the perspective of a villain, which I believe Morbius is meant to be a villain. Even though in the film, he's not really presented as a villain, but that's fine. I don't think that's a bad idea for a movie, especially if you're going to do somewhat lower budget, smaller type of film like this. That's just meant to be fun. But the problem is while I'm expecting something like Venom, which I'm not a big fan of those movies, but I understand why there's an appeal to them, Morbius doesn't really go that direction. It more goes the direction of not really having any understanding of the lore it's trying to establish. There isn't really any rules to Morbius. There's supposed to be this like ongoing threat that he's running out of time. He's trying to use just the blood. Okay, so there's real blood, but then there's this other blood that he made called artificial blood. That's like why he's so famous, making artificial blood, which, yeah, if we had that in the real world, that'd be super useful. We wouldn't need donations as much. But the artificial blood, which he's trying to use as a vampire, is slowly not working. It originally worked for about, I think 6 hours, but then as time goes on, it's working less and less amount of time. So eventually it goes down to 4 hours, and it's going down. He's running out of time before he has to start using real blood. And if he uses real blood, from my understanding, he becomes the full-on vampire. So yeah, it's a worrisome thing. It's whoa, you don't want to go full-on vampire all the time. You still want to be your normal self because you're trying to fix yourself, which it works. He gets a six-pack, of course, like every superhero, and he no longer needs the crutches. He's good. He's good to go. But he needs to use blood. He needs to drink blood, and he only drinks the artificial blood, and he's running out of time. And this is something that's never solved. They never solve this by the end of the film. There's no solution to it. I guess in the post-credit sequence, he's still timing it to see how long it takes before the effects wear off. But to be honest, it's weird that the film establishes this problem and it doesn't become something that we fix. And that'd maybe be fine, except for the film doesn't have anything else riding on it. Yeah, Matt Smith is in the film. He's the best friend of Michael Morbius, and eventually finds out that Michael, hey, he found the solution. He wants it. But Michael says, no, it's too dangerous. So Matt Smith goes away. And then later a nurse is attacked, and we have no idea who attacks this nurse, but then we find out later it was Matt Smith because off screen he managed to inject himself with the solution that Morbius came up with, and Matt Smith totally takes it up. He becomes full-on evil vampire, even though it's completely out of character for what he was established like earlier, and he runs with it. He's going around town attacking people. He attacked the nurse, and he eventually attacks Michael's girlfriend. Also, the father figure doctor of theirs, he attacks him as well, and then he tries to kill Morbius. And all of this, it comes out of nowhere. There's no explanation for it. Matt Smith is having the time of his life, but honestly, the whole characterization makes no sense. They needed a villain, so this was their solution, and this was the way to have him connected to Morbius, and it's stupid. It makes absolutely no sense, and it does not care. It just has no care in the world for why there's a villain. And unfortunately, their fights aren't very exciting. The effects are not as good as I was expecting, to be honest, because some of the stuff they showed in the trailer was pretty interesting, but for the most part, it doesn't work. And a lot of times there's way too much going on the screen to even figure out what's going on. They're crashing through buildings are falling apart and they're flying through it, and you think of something like Spider-Man 3 where there's a slow-mo shot of Spider-Man flying through the debris that's falling from a building, and that was done very well, and nearly 15 years ago, 16 years ago, actually. No, 15 years ago. Yeah, exactly, actually. It was 15 years ago, 2007. And today they do something like that in Morbius, the same studio, same universe even, Spider-Man film, technically, and it's not done as well. It just looks like a jumbled mess, and it's pretty laughable by the end. It's disappointing because honestly, the movie overall is not awful. It's not an awful movie, and I could see people enjoying it, but I just don't feel like a lot of their character moments are earned. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense what the rules are. They don't do a good job of establishing it. And there's just big chunks of it that are cut out because clearly when Matt Smith becomes a vampire, that was a scene that was supposed to be in the movie, but I don't know what happened. Did they cut it out because they didn't want to do the effects for it? Did they think it's, slowed things down too much? But a different part of the movie has him kidnap Michael Morbius's girlfriend, I guess, but they don't really have a chemistry. In fact, when they kiss at one point in the film, it comes out of nowhere, which I guess happens a lot in superhero movies. But this one, I was like, I don't know at all what your guys' connection is, really. But yeah, so he captures the girlfriend, but that's another scene where it kind of comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, is that supposed to be something that's in the movie, and did they cut it out? Clearly, this movie was meant to be only like an hour and a half long. Or the studio wanted it that way because they didn't want the film to run any longer. You can get more show times, especially in that opening week when everyone will probably see it, and then word of mouth will spread that the movie's not that great, and that's probably what they're expecting. And otherwise, they're maybe expecting something like Venom. Let's make a shorter movie, more screen times, more money, and maybe there'll be enough of an audience who will like it. And that happened with Venom. But to be honest, watching Morbius, I don't see where the appeal for this movie is going to be the same as Venom, because where Venom is having a lot of fun with itself, the actors are clearly, really cheesing up their performances. This film, besides Matt Smith, they're not really doing that, and the film has a look and a tone that isn't as silly as Venom. It's taking itself a little more seriously for the subject matter, which is too bad, because if you look at the subject matter, you should really be playing it up. And it feels like it's embarrassed of the fact that they're making a Morbius film. So yeah, I don't know. That's not really news to anybody, though. This film has been ridiculed to death. I do think it was overdone. I think a lot of people are just riding off of the humor of the fact that this film was pushed back so many times and eventually released on April Fools. And the fact that the trailer tried to make all these connections to different universes without making sense. And granted, originally, I thought it was going to be a world where this movie took place after Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, where I suspect that film is going to break the multiverse wide open. I was thinking Morbius might take place in a world where Spider-Man, all the different universes collided on one another, hence why there would be references to the Raimi universe, the Webb universe, and the Tom Holland universe. But since this movie's now establishing itself after No Way Home, where things were fixed, for the meantime before we get to Multiverse of Madness, it doesn't make as much sense. So the post-credits scene, which is completely pointless now, Michael Keaton, who was shown a lot in the trailer, is only in the post-credits scene, and it's new footage, it's not the original footage, so they had to probably do a rewrite after they saw No Way Home, which is odd because Sony made No Way Home. You think they would have been on top of this a little quicker, but granted, this film was supposed to come out before No Way Home, so maybe they had a different plan in mind. I'm trying my best to find a scenario where Sony's not just being a complete fool. But continuity-wise, the post-credit scene doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Michael Keaton gets transferred from the Tom Holland universe into the Morbius universe, which is the same universe as Venom, but we don't know which Spider-Man universe it is yet. It could be the Webb one, could be the Raimi-verse, it could be a whole new Spider-Man. But basically, Keaton gets transferred to this universe. He's immediately released from prison because they're like, we don't know who this guy is. And then you'll leave it at that. And that post-credit scene's not bad. You could have kept that in the film and been like, hey, so even though Doctor Strange's curse turned out to be a curse, his spell anyway, his spell was meant to reverse everything and put everything back to normal. Keaton, for some reason, was transferred from the Holland universe to this universe. And while people were already complaining about that, I could at least make the argument that Doctor Strange isn't perfect. Maybe he just screwed this up a little bit, and that's it. We can leave it at that. So, hey, yeah, Keaton got accidentally transferred to this universe. Leave it at that. But then there's another end credit sequence where Vulture is back in his suit. Where he got the suit, I don't know. Why he's meeting with Michael Morbius and why Morbius decided to meet with him when the authorities are after him still, I don't know. How much time has passed since the end of the film and this credit sequence, I don't know. Why he wants to just form a team for no reason, I don't know. His mask was covering his face the whole time because Keaton did not come back for this reshoot, clearly. They only did the voice. But why he wants to do some good, I don't know. And Why he knows it has to do with Spider-Man, that he went to this universe, I don't know. None of this is explained. It's very stupid. It's Sony's rushed way to try to get the Sinister Six going again, which, they tried it with Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that did not turn out well, so I'm assuming it's not going to turn out well again. They can't rush this, man. They got to find a more gradual way to build up to the Sinister Six, and they've had multiple years to do it, and they keep not doing it, and then last second deciding, wait, we're gonna do it now. It's like, well, you had all these other movies where you could have done it. They just got to work with Marvel a little better on this whole idea if they want their other films to kind of matter within the Marvel cinematic multiverse. So anyway, that's the movie. Not a whole lot to really say about this one. Very choppy, very all, over the place with the story. Not very focused. A lot of things that are so coincidental, it's very hard to even get on board with it. There's not really a story here. There's nothing really driving the narrative. And Tyrese is in the film as a cop with this other guy, and they both don't do anything. Like, literally, Tyrese is in the trailer with, like, something on his arm. So I assume he's some character from some Marvel comic book. I get that. But he shows up at a scene, he's like, whoa, what happened here? And then he shows up at a different crime scene 20 minutes later. He's like, whoa, what happened here? And he arrests Michael Morbius at one point, and Morbius escapes through some of the most simple means ever. Like, I guess you can go visit someone in their prison cell now and just leave shit there. I didn't know you could do that. And then he shows up again. He's like, whoa, now he's killing cops. Wait a minute. Maybe it's not him. Maybe it's this other guy, Matt Smith. And, I keep calling him Matt Smith. His name was Milo in the film. I do remember his name. And then Tyrese does nothing at the end of the film. Except at one point, Morbius flies up the staircase to escape prison. And he's like at the top of the stairs. Or no, it's to escape the cops. It was before he went to prison. But he goes up the stairs. But he doesn't decide to jump off the building because I don't think he realizes he can fly yet. Even though he just flipped the stairs. I don't know. And Tyrese is up there behind him with a gun only seconds later. And I'm like, Tyrese, do you have superpowers yourself? Because how did you get up all those stairs so fast? I need to time that. Once the Blu-ray comes out, have to time that, figure out what's going on. Tyrese, yeah, just shows up at crime scene, says, what's going on here? Shows up at another crime scene, what's going on here? And then the final crime scene, what's going on here? And does nothing. He doesn't arrest anybody else. He just arrests Morbius the one time, and Morbius escapes prison pretty easily because Matt Smith just leaves his stuff there, which I don't understand that. I guess you can go to a prison cell and visit someone and just leave things in the prison cell. And yeah, he escapes, and Tyrese goes to the final battle after it happened and says, whoa, this is crazy, and does nothing. I just do not understand why they even hired Tyrese for this role. Clearly it was meant to be something else originally, and it was cut out completely. So, granted, movie not as bad as even I'm probably making it sound, because it's just generic, I think, theater filler. It's stuff that you've probably seen before. Throwback to late 90s, early 2000s superhero films with a very thin plot, but it's there just for this spectacle of seeing, these types of effects and these type of superhero characters. But, it's like we're at a point now where it's evolved so much, and so many, this type of movie has gotten so better, and, these types of blockbusters in general have just gotten better. It's always unfortunate when you have to see something like this that's so thin and so cut down, and clearly I'm more excited to see what the film was originally supposed to be, and I'm sure those stories will come out. Will there be a Morbius 2? I guess it's up to everyone out there, because maybe this will have the same appeal as Venom, but for me right now, who, someone who didn't like Venom, but I can totally see why people like it, I just don't see that, likability carrying over to this film. But we'll find out. Let me know what you thought of Morbius. Maybe you loved it. Maybe you saw something in it that I didn't, and, well, I'll see you next time.